First up on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Are there other changes since our last?
No, just moving.
Okay, and just a note on the agenda, there's going to be an executive session early. Maybe early in the meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We're going to have an executive session probably early in the meeting.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. Jenna, thank you.
Second.
Brenda, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So next up is the treasurer's report and check register.
Is there anything else that you think you want my input on before I go down? I didn't see anything that jumped out to me on the agenda, but maybe other trustees have different thoughts. The tax cap override, perhaps?
Yeah, we can discuss that.
Move that up on the agenda.
That
Well,
might be good, because we're in a kind of, we're not quite there yet on the actual cap.
yeah.
So some guidance there and how.
Well, so let me, are we out of executive session now?
Yes.
So, as a general rule, we've talked about this before in the past, and it does lead to some absurdity, because of course the way that the statute is written is a little bit absurd. And it's complicated because of the fact that you guys are slightly off schedule because of your fiscal year. So it is important every March for you guys to override that tax cap, because it is impossible for you to do your calculations in March, because even though you collect with the school district, you are collecting for a budget that's on a fiscal year, calendar year basis. And so the tax cap growth factors that you need to do your calculation are not released by the state until November-ish, somewhere in there, later in the fall, because they're released for the municipalities who are doing tax cap calculations for January. It may be a little earlier than November, but it's not available in March and May. So, so you can take a pretty good guess, and you can look at what's happening in the world, and you know what inflation is doing, but you can't do your number correctly. And so what that means is, if you don't do the override, and something unexpected happens with your growth factors, you could end up having a situation where you've needed to override and you didn't. Therefore, any money you collect in excess of the cap is unusable by you. You basically have to sit on it and return it to the taxpayers the next year. That's not a good situation. It doesn't help. It's a budgeting nightmare. It's no good. So we recommend to all of our library clients, not just APL, that you override the tax cap even in those years where you do not intend to go over it. And with a few exceptions, you have routinely gone up to it and not over it. That has nothing to do with the policy of, do you believe in the tax cap, do you not believe in the tax cap, is it a good thing for government and the economy or not? That's, again, I'm not editorializing about that, that's just practicality. There were 2 years where, layered on top of the tax cap, the governor also had the circuit breaker rebates that were happening. So in the event that you were in a municipality that came in under the cap, the governor's office and the legislature set aside money to rebate people for the increases in the taxes because that municipality stayed within the tax. In those years, it was an element of this application for you to participate in those rebates that you certify that you had either passed a tax cap or never overridden it at all, or if it was overridden, you rescinded it prior to a certain point in the year. That statute is come and gone. It's not in place anymore. The rebates aren't happening anymore. So there's no statutory reason that you need to go back and revisit this. The real question is the optics of it. If you get to this point in the year and you know that indeed, okay, we were fine, we don't need to have the tax cap override, do you want to rescind it? I think that's purely optics. It doesn't matter, frankly, but that's the board's decision, and so that's the discussion that needs to be had. I frankly would just leave it alone because it serves some protective purpose, but if the board is so inclined to not have it, then you can rescind it.
I've been on the phone with the controller's office and I've done all the calculations, and they've told us what the numbers are. The problem is that right now the tax and finance haven't published the numbers, but we're gonna be within the override, so we'll be fine. But what she advised me to do.
You're gonna be under the cap.
Under the cap, yeah.
Okay, even without the override.
Right. But my advice to Scott, and after speaking to the controller's office, is not to reverse the override until which time we get firm numbers on the website from the tax and finance, and then we can reverse it. But if you say
I mean,
we
my-
could just keep it over, I mean, in that 1 year when we hadn't reversed it, we had gotten pushback because of those tax rebates. that
In
they were
those years, it
giving.
was important,
Yes,
because if you hadn't done it, your portion couldn't be rebated to
We
people.
understand.
Whereas if you had overridden, if you had rescinded the override, that small increase could be. That's not happening anymore. So now it is really just the small p political question of, is that important for this board to do that or not? I honestly think it's a non-issue, but it's your decision.
yeah.
I just, that's the nature of it. What I don't want you to do is do it prematurely, because if you do it prematurely and the numbers come in wrong,
Right.
that's the headache that you're trying to avoid
would
by doing
never-
it in the first place, So, maybe you'll know something by September or October. By October, you really should know something, because people are building their budgets based on fiscal year 19 at that point.
So we have till December of this year to rescind?
Theoretically, you can rescind in perpetuity. It's just, I think if you were trying to say, we now have clarity, there's no issue, our budget's about to start, we're rescinding, that would be the time.
I think what you're telling us is from now on, we should always pass the override and we don't have to worry about rescinding it.
I really don't think you have to worry about rescinding it. The reason that you had to rescind it were those special bills because
Yeah,
there were
couple
rebates
years.
being paid on that stuff.
Sarah?
Can somebody give an update? Has anybody contacted the auditor in response to changing our fiscal year?
So we have had, I think, 2 meetings now with the auditors. They are currently writing something up for us to look over, just to see what the costs were, what they believe the process is gonna be. I am gonna, because this came up earlier today, I'm gonna give them a call just for a gentle nudge. I was giving them their auditors, it's the summer, but it's probably time.
So out of the 2 meetings, do they have a general feeling? I know we've been talking whether there would be a long year or a short year. Do they have a feeling already on that?
No, not yet.
I don't think there's a question it has to be a short year. I don't think you'll be able to do a long year, because the system's not set up for a long year. OSC can't handle a long year. I think it's gonna have to be a step year.
Okay.
I could be proven completely incorrect by the people who actually know, but I don't think that's gonna be possible.
Most of the libraries that have done this, it's been a short year, and then and I think in the DLD reports, it's set up that way.
Any other question or comment about the tax cap rescinding? Any opinions on what Mary suggested? I agree that we should wait until we have the numbers, because we don't want, recommended, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. So, any other thoughts? No? Okay.
Sorry I have to run. Something sort of unexpected came up family-wise. Nothing bad, actually sort of good, but I have family unexpectedly in town. Trying to get them to dinner and stuff, so thank you. Appreciate it. I'll see you in September. For the whole meeting even.
That's a song.
We're empty around this.
All right, so we're on to the treasurer's report and the check register. Anything?
About,
Thank you.
So we're halfway through the year, so that's the measure we can look at. Is there anything you want to point out, Mary, that you've observed, or Allison?
Well, we're still, for the most part, running on budget. We're running under budget on salaries, but that's because we're under some positions that were in the budget. And over in IT, but they're aware. And In terms of checks, the only thing that might be of interest to the board would be that the check 8833 for it's only $985, and check 8857 for LaCourte, that's to move the IT department within the third floor, so that was electrical installation for the new IT office, so that was major things.
Just curious why we're paying Bethlehem Public Library fines.
That's just, if we lose one of their
Oh,
books, then
then
we
we
pay them
pay
back
them.
for it.
It used to be if you lost another library's books, you were told you either had to send them a check or write them a check at the desk. We thought that was a little,
I once lost a book from URI and they told me I had to come in with it. I was like,
Any other questions on the check register or the treasurer's report? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the check register.
Make a motion.
Allison, second Wendy, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Committee and liaison reports. So the executive committee report was added to the packet on Friday. The most significant thing we discussed was the committee assignments, which was shared with you in advance. There's a new, on page 25 of your packet, there's a list of the committees, the executive committee assigned them. And well, first I want to thank Jenna for volunteering to be on the APL Foundation, and thank Andy for his longtime service on that board. And then thank Matthew and Sarah for volunteering for the North Albany Ad Hoc Committee. We'll need one more volunteer, but we're going to talk about that later in the meeting. Are there any other questions about the executive committee meeting minutes?
I just want to note that my name only has one on
Your name
Throughout.
has two?
that. Yeah, it has two a couple times throughout, so.
Oh, in the executive committee notes, okay.
Yes.
Not in the committee list.
It's
Okay.
all right.
I'm sorry.
Family spells my name wrong, so it's okay.
I have a question. Last year, I was told that my OLS liaison work was my second function, so that I was just doing, I don't know if we have talked about this, but I was just doing facilities and OLS, and now I'm facilities, personnel, OLS, and ad hoc. So,
Yes.
something's
You
gotta
busy.
give.
Yep, yep. That's something we can adjust. Yeah.
Is there something that you prefer more than the other?
Uh,
you want to jettison?
I was thinking of staying on facilities for continuity because we're in the middle of our review of all the facilities. We're not finished yet, so yeah, and I like personnel. It's something, if you wanted to consider me for that in the future, that's a place I would also want to try, but I think just for this coming year to finish the facilities report, maybe that's where I need to be, unless you want to take me off of the ad hoc, I don't know, because I volunteered for an extra thing as well.
Right.
so.
Is anybody else interested in personnel?
I'm happy to join that.
good crew.
Thank you.
And my name has two S's in
Oh, you're looking at the committee notes?
it. I respond to anything nice.
Okay. We'll correct the names.
Yes.
All right, then we'll talk about the ad hoc committee later. Thanks, everybody. Sorry for oversight, Matthew. Okay, facilities committee.
Speak of the devil. had our last facilities meeting July 17th, and the two main items on the agenda were the DLD grant submission and the walkthrough of this branch. So the DLD grant submission is wrapped up with the solar roof being placed on Howe, and the evaluation by Castleman is that it would only offset the electric bill of Howe by 30%, where most is sort of, according to Castleman via Scott, companies who do this now are kind of moving toward residential where they can actually make their money back more quickly. So just having a 30% savings on electricity is going to make the payback on the roof much, much longer than a residential roof would take. And we discussed, Elisa and Scott and I discussed the idea, there's a 30-year life for the panels that they're talking about, but they, would something else newer come out that would kind of make these outdated long before that, so we don't know. So it helps us to be green and do a project like this, but it's not going to pay for itself very quickly. That's kind of where we are on that.
But there's the state construction funds, which would look very favorable on a green project. And NYSERDA grant money as well, so that would offset, so payback at this time is like 20 to 30 years, but with these other these are not loans, this is like outright paying for it, our payback period would be sooner than that, so maybe even 10 years. So we were thinking if the life of the panels is 10 years and the industry standard is changing so rapidly that maybe in 10, 20 years we put, you know, a rubber roof on with solar capacity. You know, we could, in 10 years, we could evaluate that again. So that seemed like a reasonable offset.
So was the decision made to submit the grant? Because it's due. Yeah, so you included it.
Can I just ask, I'm guessing we don't need solar panels. It's a wish.
Well, this is a two-part project. One is to repair the roof, which is part of the grant that got rejected last year. However, when we redid Howe, it is a silver LEED certified facility. So we've always kind of philosophically wanted to move our buildings as green as possible. I don't know if we can get recertified gold with the solar panels on it, but it definitely moves us in that direction. And we view this as we're setting an example for other libraries and also nonprofits in the community about moving towards. So in some ways we're doing this because it's kind of, we feel like we're the stewards, and we are part of New York Library Association's sustainability initiative, and they definitely are very pro-solar. It also bumps us up considerably in the rubric when Upper Hudson looks at this project.
Do we know how much NYSERDA can provide?
Yes, I don't have that in front of me right now, but it was presented to the facilities committee. I think it's about 10 grand, 10 or 15 grand.
That's the cost of the roof?
No, what we would get back from NYSERDA for installing roofs.
How much is the cost to install? Is it 50,000?
Yes.
So the whole project is 104,000?
Yes.
How much the cost of the project?
For about 140,000.
Okay. Okay.
And if we don't get funded, are we going forward with the solar panels?
I would say no, but we need to go forward with repairing the roof. We can't put the panels up there till the roof's repaired.
So second item was the Arbor Hill Branch walkthrough. It's a lot of minutia. I don't feel it needs to be read out loud necessarily. You can read through it, kind of skim through it. It's just little things that need to be done and touched up. There is a crack in the floor, which people are worried about. Dan is monitoring that and making sure that it doesn't change and hasn't changed in months, right? So the other things are less worrisome and just basic wear and tear that need to be taken care of. This is the board walkthrough, and this will be incorporated into the overall facilities report.
What number of branch was this on the facilities walkthrough and what's left?
Was it 3?
No, Bach and Washington, I mean, we don't, I think maybe we should do a walkthrough of the Y, but we have 2 branches left, Bach and Washington.
And I would, well, that's a facilities
This is the 4.
committee discussion, but I would vote for a quick walkthrough of the line.
Yeah, because there aren't major issues there that aren't being.
So that would leave us 3.
The Bach,
Facilities issues we would need to pay for at the one?
No, but we
no.
just be aware of.
Yeah, that we need to be aware of.
Okay.
With the Bach walkthrough, Dana and I talked about today, it's probably a 20-minute walkthrough. If that Washington Avenue is gonna be, put on your walking shoes.
Yeah.
This is a lot of building.
Are those scheduled, or do you have an idea when those two will take place?
We haven't scheduled them yet. We do have on the books a quarterly facilities meeting, and sometimes we just say, okay, this one's one where we do a walkthrough. I think we have one scheduled in September, but I have to look, and you'll get an email as soon as it's scheduled. I now will email a full board meeting announcement as soon as the meeting's solidified.
So those were just for informational purposes only, there was no voting.
Any other questions on
No.
facilities? Thank you. UHLS.
All right, well, there is no August meeting. I put that this is for August, that was for July. Duh, I just saw that. That was the July meeting. So it happened July 11th. Very standard business. There wasn't a ton of voting going on. And if you access the digital document, you can take a look at the plan of service survey that they did, that they put together, or the plan of service for the next 5 years, rather. That's on a link under item 4. And the construction grant portal had opened. That was something that was announced to the board. Scott was aware of that. And because they're not having an August meeting, they're just having the committee that decides on the grants meet. And apparently they've been back and forth already with Scott and the other libraries who applied. So that's all rolling. There's been a board vacancy for quite some time for a small library on the other side of the river, so we voted a woman who has this great educational background in Rensselaer County to join the OLS board. Nothing really earth-shattering.
Are you on the grant review committee?
I am not. I don't think the liaison normally is.
Is the, and will the whole board vote on the,
Yes, well, that's where we had the crazy vote
right,
last time.
that's what I was talking about.
So, they haven't done that yet. That would be
Okay.
our next meeting, I'm guessing,
Okay. And just remember,
September.
say yes, otherwise it doesn't count.
I have to put that thing you sent me on Evernote so I can flash that right up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Peg. So Melanie, will you go?
So we met last Thursday. We did not have an official meeting because we did not have quorum. But we did hear from Teleview, which is the company that supplies the server and the uploading equipment that actually puts the broadcast out. The equipment that we have right now is legacy equipment. It's no longer being supported. There are many, many issues with it. So we do need to replace it soon. It was going to be a little bit of an issue because we were having difficulties with budget, because the equipment, even the low-end equipment that we need to replace was at least $40,000, and we really only had $35,000 in our budget for equipment. Once we started this conversation, since we started the conversation about it, we determined that there is about $206,000 from the original phase 2 that was never spent on equipment that we thought was spent on equipment. So thankfully we have that. We're just finding out now, determining how that funds can be released. We still have to vote to purchase the equipment itself, so that decision won't be made until at least the September meeting. And then it turns out, in addition, the Department of Children and Health Services, the state
Children and Family Services.
Children and Family Services gave us a grant back in 2015 of another couple $1,000s for equipment and such, and which was lost in the shuffle of things. Somebody just forgot that we received it, and during an audit this year of their books, they realized that the money was never spent. So as soon as we have something to purchase, we can submit them the bill, and they will release the funds for that as well. October 20th, which happens to be now a very busy day, is Community Media Day, and the studio is planning an open house event on that day. We're still determining the time. It's looking like, right now, I think we're estimating 10 to 2 or 11 to 3. It will be held at the Washington Avenue location in the large meeting room. There'll be speakers, there'll be classes on how to run the equipment, because you do need to get certified to utilize the equipment now. One of the things that we discussed in the past meeting is the role of the studio coordinator is not to produce the shows. His job is to coordinate what's going on in the studio to get things uploaded and broadcasted. And in years past, people have kind of taken that role as, oh, you're our cameraman and you're going to edit our video. So the board unanimously decided and put into writing as part of our policies and procedures that the studio coordinator will not be doing that. He'll be on hand to assist should it be needed, but he is not to be producing the shows. The producers of the show should be doing that. And that is getting a little bit of pushback from the community because they were used to having somebody else do their stuff. So right now, we're just in the process of trying to get the community trained to use the equipment so they can then produce their own shows.
And just to clarify, when you say we in this context, you mean
But,
yes. Except,
yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
happened to
It's fine.
wear two hats on that. So, as the PEG board, that's what we are pushing for. And if you are out in the community and see anybody videotaping any event and they have a placard up saying that they are Channel Albany, please let us know, because that is another thing that Channel Albany right now is the PEG board and the coordinator. Anybody videotaping events could videotape events to later then be broadcast, possibly broadcast on Channel Albany, but they are not representatives of Channel Albany themselves. So please inform us if anybody is out in the community stating that they are Channel Albany because they should not be representing themselves as such.
Any other questions? Okay. Policy and procedures, great.
No updates have been made. We had
Director's report.
Can I just go back to this one sec? The full board discussion needed for board member expectations conduct? What, we've been
That's-
putting that off, haven't we?
We've been waiting for you guys to make the arrangements to have that meeting.
Great, so we drafted,
Yeah, I'll take
Yeah, we're working on-
responsibility for that, because at the last meeting, I had an action item which I have not yet completed. Allison did the vast majority of the work on that, but there was a couple of small additions that I wanted to build out and then share amongst the executive committee. And I'm delinquent on that, so I need to take the hit for that. So hopefully
APL staff
by,
has taken a backseat because as expectations of the board, that should be
Yeah,
decided
right.
solely on your.
Right, okay.
so hopefully by September, I'll get it drafted, share with the executive committee. We can move forward.
So summer reading is in full swing across the district. The Washington Avenue and Pine Hills branch conducted another successful story time on a CDTA bus. The Arbor Hill branch kicked off a 4-week ceramics program with a local artist. The Pine Hills branch hosted a music trivia night at the 9 Cider as part of the APL on the road. The Bach branch's Let's Talk About Albany program took a field trip to the Tenbrook Mansion. The Delaware branch hosted the Iroquois games and dances on the back patio. The Howe branch's crime fiction writing workshop with one of this year's literary legends, Frank Bailey, has been a great success at Howe. North Albany hosted a drum circle using the Wise small gym as their official SRP kickoff, and I think there was about 40 or 50 kids at that event. The library participated in the ribbon cutting ceremony of the Larkin Library bus station in front of the Washington Avenue branch. All locations passed their annual inspection without any violations. The library district made a significant upgrade to its network and is now 1 gigabyte branch to branch into the internet. In August, a little bit of a preview, the Washington Avenue branch will have hosted a drag queen story hour. The Bach branch will have organized an emergency and first aid for pets beginner class. The Arbor Hill West Hill branch put on magic workshops for ages 3 to 17. The public television was at the Delaware branch for Giraffes Can Dance.
Let me just hold on a second. So distracted.
Alex is on
Okay.
Was that canceled? Okay, find out. And the Howe branch will be hosting a hip hop showcase on 8/17. And then just a reminder to everybody that summer reading concludes 8/31, August 31. The statistics were a little late, but they came as an addendum to your packet. I just want to point them out because for the last 2 months, 3 months, all of our stats have been trending in a really positive manner, including circulation. So unless something drastically goes wrong, we may actually see an increase in circulation month over month, which would make me really happy. But other than that, I mean, we're up in every metric, including summer reading signups. Summer reading signups, we surpassed our goal about 4 weeks ago, very early. So we're doing really well. I'm just really happy with these numbers. And this is how we're gonna report, this is the format that we're gonna report it in, going from there. I'll open the floor up to any questions.
How are we doing with summer reading completion? Are kids sticking with it?
Where kids are sticking with it, it's at about the same rate as it was last year, but because there's more kids, that means more kids are completing it. What's also good is our data is much better this year, so we have probably about 200 more kind of kids that we've identified that we can kind of follow. But the completion, again, is not up, but we're hoping in the end we'll get a higher completion rate.
And Albany Promise is happy with what they're getting?
Albany Promise is very happy with the data, they're very happy with what they're getting, they think better than it was last year. Yeah, we're all very happy with the way things are working out. Some of the things we tried this year, like using the school district's SNN network, have been really helpful, so we have to look at community partnerships and how they've made this program successful.
When will we get an update from Albany Promise? I can't remember when we did last year.
I believe it was either October or November of
Oh,
last
Yeah,
year.
it might
Did they have a
be,
recent one from them? No, they did like the who we are, not the update, right?
No, they
No,
did a
they
whole
didn't.
presentation on that.
So-
Pine Hills.
Yeah,
This-
that wasn't.
the staff will do an update of how successful the summer reading program was. The promise doesn't usually come in until the test scores. And they have to, so the test at them, what's usually, when are the first tests given? Gosh, I should remember
In
this.
the fall.
September.
It's either late September or early October.
Yeah.
So
it's
we probably won't
pretty
hear
soon.
about
NWEA
their
will be in
review
late
until.
September.
They have data. Because I remember the first update Melanie gave at my very first meeting. So then we had the Albany Promise Lady again at Pine Hills. I thought that was pretty recent. It's cool. Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about the fallout or encouragement from the drag story hour.
We're gonna do a full debrief on that next month when we report out, but I can tell you that, we won't do one again when I'm on vacation.
It was so popular.
We had 211 people
That's
come.
huge.
If you discount social media interactions, it was probably one positive comment per 3 negative comments. Fred Dicker, who's a
I think
radio
just the
host.
opposite.
No, if you discount Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't use social media, we had about 20 people reach out to us. About 5 of them were positive, 15 were negative. We saw a huge uptick in that when Fred Dicker kind of expressed some dissatisfaction with the library.
We've been in charge of his before.
Yes,
Yeah.
so as a teammate from Jiu-Jitsu texted me like, oh my God, you have to put Fred Dicker on right now. I'm like, it is what it is. So of the 4 media coverage, 3 were positive, 1 was negative. One of those was News Talk 13, came back, actually interviewed Lisa, and it was a relatively positive interaction. If you include social media, it was, what would you say, 5 negative comments to about 400 positive comments?
Add Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram altogether, it was vastly positive.
And even I fielded several phone calls from the negative comments, and after explaining our reasoning behind it, and they all were like, okay, that sounds reasonable. And I didn't have anybody at the end of a conversation say, they hate the library, we'll never come again. They were all like, okay, that's reasonable, we understand.
The people I spoke with, 2 of them were not Albany residents, which I found interesting. And then the Albany residents I talked to, once it was explained that it was not during a regularly scheduled story time, that this was optional, and because of the age range, kids pretty much had to be with their parents, they were much more understanding. I wouldn't say understanding, but they were less angry.
Yes.
It's not an invention of the Albany Public Library. This
Not
is
at all.
something that happens all over.
Hudson.
Yeah. So.
Is it a nationwide?
It's
Because I know,
nationwide.
I was talking with someone who lives in Connecticut, and this was mostly done in June, I believe.
A lot of them did them during Pride Month.
Right.
Hudson's been doing a regular one.
Queens does a regular one
Yeah,
as well.
Queens does a regular one as well.
Providence Public Library's been doing it for like a decade.
And to be honest, we've had directors from the other libraries in the system basically bugging me for when we were gonna do it, because they would like to do it, but, you know, it was even said at the last DA meeting last week that it was, everybody was waiting for us.
We actually had Mary Fellows from Upper Hudson attend the event, and she's like, that was her sentiment, is that thank you for doing this, because now this opens it up for the other Upper Hudson.
And there's a really wonderful blog post from a woman on the Post Star website that I will share with you. I just read it to them.
wanted to point out, you mentioned the four-session ceramics class. So that was one of the grants from APLF, right? Right, so do we talk about
What was that?
Instead of just giving the money to APL this year, the foundation worked with the library to get applications for grants for innovative programs. And so one of the programs that Scott mentioned of the ceramics class, was one of those grants. Yeah, so I thought, sitting on the foundation board, I thought that was really fun.
I'm sorry, which class?
The
Ceramics
ceramics.
class.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Non sequitur, I was still on drag.
Drag queens.
I wanted to mention it before.
Who gave you a grant to do the drag queen?
So this is going to be a regular feature. It's going to be another set in the fall, and it's just it's a fun way to encourage innovation and participation with the staff.
I thought that process was really good, and it gives the foundation something to hang its hat on, which is a positive, and it lets our staff understand the foundation a little bit better and feel a little bit more involved.
And I do want to just mention, we mentioned for the Drag Queen Story Hour that 211 people showed up, and all of those were in support. We had extra staff on hand in case there were dissenting people, and there was not a single one.
Puppy dog veterinary thing was widely,
Yes.
enjoyed.
Good. It's good to hear. We actually had a negative comment about that, but that's,
That's great. That was my bad.
Dare you teach those puppies to read?
No, they were getting stitches and Band-Aids.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So we have no unfinished business. Under new business, just one item is appointing another trustee to the North Albany Branch Ad Hoc Committee.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I
I
just,
didn't hear what's going on.
I distracted Brenda.
So we have 3 trustees on the North Albany Ad Hoc Committee for North Albany to work with the staff to re-envision that space and recommit to the program. So Matthew and Sarah have volunteered, thank you very much. And we're looking for one more trustee to volunteer for that one.
Walter.
Thank you, Anthony. All right. And we already talked about rescinding the tax cap. So next up is public comment, and seeing no public present, it is time to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Jenna, second. Matthew, all in favor?
Hey.
Aye.